Hey, it's Camila Stevenson, and around here we talk wealth. And I want to say something honestly about those who've been following XRP for a long period of time. And if you have been, I'm guessing that you probably feel like you understand the thesis behind XRP. You may understand cross-border settlement. You may understand Nostro accounts and the problem with that, and also why banks need neutral payment rails. You may have even heard it explained or have explained it to other people. But I want to go deeper into this because what I notice is that sometimes people who have been in this space the longest, the ones who know the most or who can explain the banking infrastructure argument in their sleep, are sometimes the most vulnerable to missing what is coming next. And this is because when you feel like you already understand something fully, you stop looking for the layers underneath it and you stop asking whether there is a part of the story that you haven't seen yet. And so now I want to talk about another layer of XRP that maybe nobody's connecting to the thesis. And it's not the banking story or the settlement story, but it's something sitting right behind all of that, which is going to matter when this plays out. And I want to trigger a danger to all of this so that we can calibrate and recalibrate back into alignment for protective sake. Because it is one thing to accumulate something that you believe in and that you have conviction behind, but it's another thing to arrange it in such a way that you can preserve the wise decisions that you have made already. And there are danger points in between. And so before I get in, I do want to say this is not a financial advisory channel. I am not here to tell you what to do with your investments. That is up to you. Your expectations are yours alone. So do your own due diligence. I'm only here for educational and entertainment purposes only. Now, if this channel feels like something that could help you grow in your financial freedom, go ahead and like the video and subscribe if you have not already. There is so much more to come. We are just getting started. Now, I do want to talk about the danger of thinking that you already know everything there is to this space. And I follow the same system myself. So let me paint a picture that I think is going to feel very uncomfortably familiar to a lot of people who may watch this video. So you may have found XRP and done the research. You understood the thesis before most people around you even knew what the blockchain was. And you may have even sat through the price drops and held through the narratives and the headlines and what I call the noise. And maybe because you've established an understanding before, you may have stopped asking questions about it. And that could be subconsciously, right? Nobody decides to stop learning. It happens gradually. And you reach a point where maybe the new videos are covering the same ground that you already covered. Same arguments, same explanations, same use cases, and you nod along because you already know that and you move on. But here's what I want you to consider right now. The most expensive assumption an investor can make is that they have a complete picture. Not a wrong picture, not a bad picture, a complete one. Because markets don't reward people who understood something first. They reward people who understand it most fully, okay? And there is a difference between knowing the banking thesis and knowing everything that sits behind the banking thesis that is still building right now as I speak, right? Now, I always use the analogy of the internet because it's so common and it's a realistic example. In the late 1990s, most people who understood the internet understood email, they understood websites, they understood that information was moving differently, and they were absolutely right. That thesis was completely correct. But the people who only saw email and websites missed social media. They missed smartphones. They missed streaming. They missed cloud computing. They missed entire industries that were built on the same infrastructure that they thought they already fully understood. They were not wrong about what they knew. They were just, again, incomplete. And right now, I believe the same thing is happening in the XRP space. Most people who follow XRP understand the banking use case, cross-border settlement, institutional adoption, regulatory clarity. That thesis is real and it's moving forward and playing out exactly the way the architecture suggested it would. but there is a second use case being built on the same infrastructure that most people in this space have never seriously connected to their thesis. And when it arrives, it's not going to replace the banking story. It is going to add an entirely new layer of demand on top of it. The people who see both layers right now are holding a completely different level of conviction than the people who only see one. And that second layer is what we're going to talk about. So first, let me be very clear before we go into the second layer. The banking thesis is not old news. It's not played out. It is not something that you always understand just because it was explained before. Because here is what most people are going to miss in the XRP space of what they know versus what is really happening. Most people know the problem, but knowing the problem and understanding the current state of the solution is very significant. Okay. So let me walk you through this so you can understand. Think about a new highway system being built between two different cities. The first phase of that project is not the cars driving on the highway. The first phase is the construction. It's laying the foundation. It's running the infrastructure, installing the systems that make the highway functional. You do not see the traffic yet. You just see workers and equipment in progress that most people driving past would not even notice. Now, let me just say this. The construction phase is done. The highway exists. The infrastructure is in place. Banks and financial institutions are already connecting to this network. The messaging rails are already built. The settlement technology, it works. It really does. And that part of the story is not coming. It already happened. Even if it was quietly, it happened while most people were watching the price. Now, here's where most people's understanding XRP stops. They think the next step is institutions deciding whether to use XRP, and they're waiting for that decision like it's still years away. But that decision framework is already in place. Here is what the evolution really looks like. Right now, banks connected to this network are doing what they already do. They're just doing it better and faster. So money is moving across borders more efficiently using existing infrastructure. Now that is valuable, that's real, but it's still, again, not the full picture. The next evolution is banks making a choice. Instead of holding pre-funded accounts in every country they operate in, instead of keeping a German bank's Turkish currency sitting idle in an account waiting to be used, they route that transaction through XRP in real time. The value converts instantly. The receiving bank gets exactly what they need in the currency that they use. So there's no pre-funded accounts, no trapped capital, no correspondent banks taking cuts along the way. That evolution does not require new technology. The technology already exists. It does not require new partnerships. The partnerships are built, and it does not require new regulation. The commodity determination just arrived, and the Clarity Act is not too far away, right? So it requires just one thing: the legal and regulatory framework being clear enough that institutions can make that choice without legal risk. And that framework is arriving right now. And this is why the commodity determination we talked about in one of the previous videos matters to the context of this conversation, because it's not just a label, it's a final piece of the permission structure that lets institutions make the choice to route through XRP at scale. So the highway is built, the legal green light is arriving, and the traffic, the actual volume of transaction flowing through XRP as operational infrastructure rather than just as a traded asset, is about to look completely different from anything we've ever seen before. But here's what I need you to pay close attention to, because what I just described, as significant as it is still only one layer of what's coming. The second layer is something most people in this space has never seriously thought about, and it may actually be bigger. So let me ask you something that I genuinely want you to think about for a second. What does an AI agent need to operate in the world? Not what does it need to think, not what does it need to process information. What does it need to actually do things in the world? To buy resources, to pay for services, to execute transactions, to move value from one place to another autonomously without a human being in the loop approving every single step. Well, it needs money, but not human money. Human money was designed for humans. It runs through banking systems that require identity verification. It requires account applications and approval processes and compliance checks and business days and settlement windows and all of that. It was built for a world where a person sits behind every transaction and authorizes every movement of value. AI agents cannot open bank accounts. They cannot wait 3 to 5 business days for a wire to settle. They cannot go through a KYC process. They do not have a social security number. They don't have a passport. So they need something completely different. They need programmable money, money that can move instantly, execute autonomously, settle in seconds, operate cross borders without asking permission from any centralized gatekeeper, money that lives on rails built for speed and neutrality rather than rails built for human bureaucracy. Now think about what XRP actually is. Fast, 3 to 5 second settlement, neutral, not controlled by any government or central bank, borderless, works across any currency corridor without pre-funding, programmable, can execute transactions autonomously through smart infrastructure, commodity classified, not a security tied to any company's performance. XRP was not built for AI agents. It was built for institutional cross-border settlement, but the characteristics that make it perfect for institutional settlement are the exact same characteristics that make it perfect for an autonomous AI economy. And here's what makes this genuinely significant right now. We're not talking about a future that is decades away. AI agents are already operating. They are already executing tasks. They are already making decisions autonomously. The question of how they transact financially is not a philosophical question anymore. It's an engineering problem being solved right now by the people building the next generation of AI infrastructure. And the people at Ripple are paying attention to this. When Ripple recently released content showing their roadmap and vision, AI was mentioned not once, but twice alongside XRP at the corner of everything being built. That is not a coincidence. That is not a marketing language. That is a signal about where Ripple sees the next evolution of XRP's utility going. Think about what the AI economy looks like at scale. Right now, there are millions of AI agents being deployed across industries: customer service, financial analysis, content creation, supply chain management, healthcare. Each of those agents is going to need to transact, pay for compute resources, purchase data, execute micro settlements, move value across systems and borders in real time without human approval at every step. The scale of that transaction volume is going to dwarf anything the traditional banking system handles today. And it needs infrastructure that can handle that speed, that neutrality, and that programmability. Now, here's what I want you to really think about. Most XRP holders are evaluating their position based on one demand curve, the institutional banking adoption curve, which is real and significant and still building. But there is a second demand curve forming behind it, the AI agent economy. And when both of those demand curves are pulling on the same asset simultaneously, meaning on an asset with a fixed and finite supply, then the conversation about value looks completely different from anything most people are currently modeling in their heads. Now, this is not speculation about something that might happen someday. The infrastructure is already being built. The AI agents are already operating. The programmable money problem is already being solved. And XRP is already positioned at the intersection of both curves. The people who only see the banking story are holding a thesis. The people who see both layers are holding a conviction that goes significantly deeper than anything a price chart can shake. And the depth of understanding, meaning that ability to see what is coming before it becomes obvious, is exactly the edge that separates the people who build wealth in moments like this from the people who find out about it later and wish that they had paid closer attention. I'm telling you, it's time to stretch your mind above the horizons that have been setting your limitations from the past. Now, I want you to think about everything that I just talked about. Just do your own research and expand your knowledge base, right? Because I believe in the coming days, this thing is going to be totally different from what people are currently imagining. Now, we did just walk through the two demand curves building simultaneously on the same asset, meaning institutional banking adoption and the AI agent economy, both pulling on XRP, both still in early stages, but pointing in the same direction. And most people holding XRP right now are doing it in a structure that is going to create a significant tax problem the moment either of those curves drives meaningful appreciation. Here's what I mean. You hold XRP for 2 or 3 years through everything the market throws at you, the volatility, the narrative, the waiting, and you do everything right with the investment itself. And then the market reflects what the architecture has been building toward. And then you find out exactly how much of those gains you owe in taxes. After all of that patience, the structure you chose at the beginning quietly takes away a significant portion of what you built. That is the conversation most people are not having right now. And that is the one that matters most while the price is still here. Now, I hold a portion of my XRP inside a Roth IRA through iTrust Capital specifically because of this. Inside a Roth, your gains grow completely tax-free. And when the banking adoption curve and the AI demand curve both starts pulling on this asset at the same time, I am not writing a check to the IRS. I get to keep everything. And also, I do want to add that iTrust holds gold and silver backed by physical gold and silver inside of the same account. Remember, gold is a commodity and XRP is now officially a commodity. Two commodity class assets working together inside of one tax advantage structure. That is not just smart investing. That is wealth architecture. They also have an institutional grade closed loop custody system. And so there's an account that you can also put your assets into that is secured by infrastructure built for serious long-term holders. Okay. And so that is their other account. It is a closed loop system so that no threats can get to it. And I am also holding my assets there because I want to participate in yield opportunities as they develop on digital assets moving forward. So now I have a position where my digital assets are appreciating and I can participate in some type of yield on top of that. Now, if any of that interests you, the links are in the description. There is a $100 funding bonus when you do fund your account. Now, I also want to address that if you do want a clear framework for your specific situation, then you can also join our coaching program. We help you to build a plan that's specific for your life, your position, your timeline, and your conviction, so that when both of these curves start moving, you're not making decisions based on emotion. You're executing a real strategy that you have already built and you've been very intentional about. So the link is in the description if you want access to my community, and also my one-on-one clarity calls are open if you want something designed specifically for your situation. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, which use case do you think is going to drive the bigger price discovery for XRP? The institutional banking evolution as settlement routing through XRP that scales globally, or the AI agent economy as autonomous systems that need programmable borderless money to operate? Drop it in the comments. Banking or AI? And the answers are going to be very interesting, and I love to read all of them. Also, if this video helped you to see a different layer of the XRP story, then go ahead and give it a like and subscribe if you have not already. Also, share this content with someone in your crypto circle who think they already have the full story about everything. Maybe this will give them something to think about. I want you all to do your own research. Come back. Let me know about it. That's how we are growing together, by adding value as we research, as we get educated, and as we grow. And as always, I want you in the midst of that to stay wise, stay wealthy, and I'll see you in the next video.